Thanks for checking out The Selfish Show. On this episode, we talk with Dr. Cornman, who is a recruiter these days, but he has 40 years of experience in higher education. He is a provost, interim president, a professor, and VP for academics. He's done a lot of amazing things. We talk about a liberal arts education. We talk about mentoring. We cover fundraising and advancement and what development work is. Just had a great conversation with him. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for checking it out. Hey, thanks for checking out the show. This is another episode of the Selfish Show. That's what I call my show, because we talk about the self-ish, and then I selfishly ask questions of people that I want to talk to. And so on today's episode, we have Dr. Thomas Cornman. Thank you for being on the show, sir.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've interacted in several settings. I interviewed for a job somewhere that you worked, and then a couple of years back, you tried to recruit me for a role, and just kind of kept in contact. But recently reconnected because you are doing some recruiting and consulting. And could you just give us a little background about who you are, what it is that you do?
Well, I spent 43 years in Christian higher education, started as a faculty member, and my last 3 roles were chief academic officers. So I've gone all the way from being an instructor at the very beginning of my career to managing the academic enterprise, and even a little bit beyond the academic enterprise at a couple of schools.
Yeah.
So I retired this past spring, summer, and was contacted by a company that wanted to expand their executive search or their retained search area. And so I joined them in May and have been trying to build a practice in retained search. The company works primarily in the area of advancement. So at this point, most of our leads and clients are coming out of the advancement world. So rescue missions, K through 12 schools, colleges and universities who are saying, we're really struggling fulfilling our need to have advancement people. Can you help us?
Yeah. Can you just give us a little bit more information on advancement? Because typically when you hear advancement, the first thing that I think of is fundraising, raising money, but it encompasses so much more. So could you just delve into that a little bit more?
Well, advancement, the best definition I've ever heard is one from way long ago in my past, which was advancement is really all about friend development.
Okay, that's
So
great.
how can you help people understand what you do and why their friendship connection is so important? Because we generally think of raising money, as you said, but the way we build resource development is by having people connect with us who see the value that we bring to them. I don't know if you're familiar at all with story brand ideas.
Yes.
So one of the things, we're doing a seminar in California this week. One of the things we're talking about is oftentimes as advancement person, you want to make your institution the hero. And part of what's going on is really being able to say to your potential donor or your potential investor, which is more like how most people handle today, you're going to be the hero in the story because of you, a student's going to be able to attend college. Because of you, we're going to be able to feed and house and clothe a mom and her kids who have no means to take care of themselves. Because of you, we're going to provide the building blocks for K through 12 students to really understand a worldview and take their place as a Christian in the world. And so part of it is telling the story of the institution, but telling it through the perspective or the eyes of the people that you want to come and join you in the enterprise that you're working on.
Awesome.
So that's key to this whole idea of advancement. The other piece to advancement is, how do you grow, mature, change, adapt to the environment that you're in now? We think about AI. How is AI going to change advancement? How's it going to change the way we interact with people? And if we're not careful, people will recognize that we've pushed them off to an AI option, and we'll lose the personal touch, and they won't see the need to connect with us.
Wow. Well, one of the things that we talk about on this channel is the challenges, or yeah, challenges is a good word for it. The challenges of working with the next generation. And I just was thinking, 43 years, you've seen so many generations of college students. And one of the things that we talk about here on this channel is what what are the challenges for work and the professional lives of the next generation? Because I mean, it's changed in the last couple of decades. It's even changed in the last 5 years. Could you help maybe an employer better understand what is the next generation like? What are they looking for? And how do you develop them professionally?
One of the issues that we're dealing with on the employment side is right sizing the expectations of the Gen Zs in the workplace.
That's a
Many of them
great,
assume that they're going to walk into a position and make exactly what their parents make, not remembering that their parents have 15, 20, 25, 30 years at
yeah.
their job. And so they've grown into what they're making now. I was at a conference last winter. One of the speakers said it's amazing working with these young people. He was talking about a friend who is the vice president of human resources in one of these companies. And
Hmm.
she said they were all excited about this prospect. She was wrapping things up, taking him around, showing him the various areas of work, what he'd be doing, who he'd be connecting with. And he stopped her and said, "Well, just one question." And she said, "Sure, what? What's the question? When is spring break?" And she said, he didn't get the job
Right,
because he didn't understand that this is not a continuation of college.
right.
And so you're going to have issues with a lot of recent college graduates because they expect that they're going to be able to continue operating the same way they did in college.
Yeah.
Everything changes every semester. They get these big breaks, and the average person moving into the workplace in their first job is going to get about 2 weeks PTO, maybe 3 weeks if they throw health benefits into that
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
health issues into that.
Yeah.
And they're probably not going to get a raise for a year.
Right.
So they're not going to get that instant gratification loop that's going on.
Right.
Employers, on the other hand, have been told that Gen Z are lazy and they're entitled and they can't fit into the workplace. And so
Right.
how do employers begin to understand Gen Z and see the value that they have? Gen Z, for the most part, is far more likely to be engaged in the workplace as long as they have a sense of meaning than the previous
Mm,
generation, who
hmm.
may or may not ever get in gear and get going.
Yeah.
One of the things my pastor complains about all the time is the 30 and 40 somethings, males who are married, have children,
Hmm.
have a job, but they're spending
Hmm.
virtually all their time gaming and they never
Mm.
step up to be a husband, a father, or an
Wow.
employee. And
Wow.
so Gen Z is probably going to outshine millennials in the long run
Yeah.
with their attitude and their work skills and so forth.
Yeah.
The difference between Gen Z and, say, the boomer generation is Gen Z wants to know that they're doing something of value. Does
Mm.
this make a difference?
Yeah.
And so employers are going to have to show that. My
Yeah.
daughter is millennial,
Hmm.
very hard worker, but she works in a warehouse.
Hmm.
And so people talk to her. There's a friend who just talked to her this past weekend. He said, "How can you do it? It's so life sucking. You don't have any meaning in what you do."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And she tried to explain to him that sometimes you bring the meaning to it because,
Yeah.
you know, faith wise, my job is to honor God in the work I do, whatever work that is, because
Yeah.
as a good reformed individual, she believes all work is calling and therefore
Right.
glorifies God.
Oh, that's fantastic. I recently had a consultant that I talked to about some Gen Z just characteristics. And one of the characteristics that she had mentioned was 20% of Gen Z have worked before. And so if a Gen Zer can get a job, not only do they need to learn the job that they just got, but they also need to learn how to work.
Correct.
Can you maybe give me your perspective? I mean, you were academic VP at several, higher ed institutions. Like, what's happened in the last, 20 years where students, I mean, I was in higher ed for a little while too, and I remember reading like students were woefully underprepared for even college. So
Oh,
how
yes.
how do we
Yeah.
prepare them for the workplace if they're not even ready for college? Can you just kind of walk us through that?
And COVID has even just magnified that. So
That's true.
the reality is, if you want to think about this from a long term perspective, most of Gen Z's problems with work are related to their parents.
Hmm. Hmm.
I can't tell you the number of parents who do not want their children to work.
Mm.
I remember sitting in a meeting with a mom who said, I want my student to focus on their schoolwork. I don't want them to work. But the problem is, all the data suggests that students who work generally tend
Yeah.
to do better in the classroom because they have to manage their time better.
Yes.
The other thing that's fascinating about this generation
Hmm.
is the number of students who enter college without a driver's license and have no desire to get one.
Wow.
Well, imagine work, moving into a work environment. And one of the things that is on a lot of the applications I see is
Can you
driver's
drive?
license. We want to check your driver's record. You're going
Yeah.
to have to go places and do things.
Yeah.
And so I don't drive.
Yeah.
Doesn't work well in that type of work environment. I've never worked before. I've never even had a job at Dairy Queen
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
Doesn't sit well. At my last employer, one of the big issues we were having was how do we fulfill the need of our food services for student workers when students would not come and work and they wouldn't come and work for that. This is Oregon.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
paying almost $15 an hour
Yeah.
uh, for entry level positions in student and food services.
Hmm.
You go to Ohio, they only pay $10 an hour.
Hmm.
And it's like, wow, why would I ever work for $10 an hour?
Hmm.
Because you've got to start someplace. And your first
Right.
job isn't necessarily about making a lot of money, it's about
Right.
learning how to be an employee. So
Yeah.
parents have not aided their student in developing the skills necessary to make the transition into the workplace, while at the same time being concerned that your school
Mm.
isn't going to prepare them properly. So they'll return home and live in the basement.
Yeah.
Schools can't work miracles.
Yeah.
In terms of outcomes assessment, one of the things we hear all the time is the greatest indicator of outcome is input. Who the
Mm.
student is coming the front door is the best indicator of how successful they'll be in the college
Right.
experience. And I think you can
Right.
say the same thing in the work environment. Who they are coming in the front door is the best indication of how successful they'll be in the workplace.
Yeah. Do you still believe in higher education? I mean, there are a lot of opportunities now to continue on in your career and further your career without higher education. And it's so stinking expensive these days. Like, how do you
Well,
figure that out?
sticker prices are expensive. Number
Yeah.
one, I would argue college isn't for everyone. And beginning in the
Okay.
1960s, the US moved
Yeah.
toward a universal college experience.
Yeah.
College had a specific purpose,
Hmm.
and it was to prepare people to lead primarily in society. The idea of majors is really only a little over 100 years old.
Hmm.
Harvard
Hmm.
didn't move into majors until the 1915 era.
Hmm.
Why? Because the purpose of college was to provide a general understanding of the liberal arts and sciences so that the individual could take their place in society and be a contributor to the civitas.
Yeah.
What's happened is in higher education is we've become a glorified, very expensive trade school
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of instead of the place of learning and development. If you asked a student in 1970, why are you going to college? They would
Yeah.
most likely include something about, I want to be a better person. I want to make a contribution to society. If you ask the average student today, why do I go to college? Because I want to get a better job.
Yeah.
So college has become a commodity and utilitarian rather than
Hmm.
having that grand transcendent approach of, I am going to get this degree so that I can contribute to society and make a difference in society. Now,
Yeah.
for the Christian, that's even more of a, wow, this is what I should be doing. My
Mhm.
goal in going to college is not so that I can get rich.
Mhm.
My goal in going to college is so that I can make a difference in the world as a Christian for
Yeah.
Christ.
Yeah.
And that means I need to understand things like politics. What is politics all about? How does it work? Because if I don't know how it works, I'm going to have some really wacky ideas about what it
Mhm.
is and how it works.
Mhm.
What is the judicial system like? Because right
Mhm.
now, you're hearing this cacophony of voices complaining about judiciary as if somehow they have to bend to my will. That's not their job. Their job is to
Mhm.
say this is legal, this is not legal, and they're to use history and jurisprudence and law
Mhm.
to make their decisions.
Yeah.
How do taxes work? This is one of my
Right.
favorites. My daughter gets her
Right.
first full-time job. She calls me
Yeah.
up one day and goes, "Dad, did you have to pay taxes when we were
They
growing
took
up?"
took
I
out all
said,
the money.
"Yeah." And her response was, "Well, how did we survive?" Number one, I had dependents, so I didn't pay quite as much in taxes. You're single.
Right.
But how do you think the government works? You drive on roads every day.
Right.
You expect this service and that service. How do we pay for those?
Right. Right.
Most A lot of young people assume, well, the government pays for that, not
Yeah.
understanding how does the government get its finances so that
Right.
they're able to do that. And so
Man.
this is the stuff of what we would call liberal arts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody once said that the purpose of liberal arts is to teach people how to learn, unlearn, and relearn as
Mhm.
life changes in front of them.
Mhm.
Learning a specialization, business, nursing, whatever, isn't going to do that.
Right.
It's not going to provide the necessary critical thinking skills to reinvent yourself. It's the
Yes.
liberal arts that will.
Yeah.
The Council of Independent Colleges spent years doing a survey on, in the long run, who makes more money. This is a very pragmatic excursus, but over the long term, over their entire careers, liberal arts graduates will make far more than students who graduate with professional degrees.
Mhm.
Why? Because more likely they're going to move into management positions. They're going to go on and get further degrees, and ultimately they're going to outshine their professional degree
Mhm.
cohort because they have the capacity to learn, unlearn, and relearn,
Right.
reinvent
Right.
themselves.
I've seen college graduates come out of school, they have their degree, and then after 4 years of it, like, they still don't know what to do, and they still don't have direction. Well, and like we were saying, it's hard for them to get a job. Like, what can you walk me through where do we miss? Why is that why does that happen?
Jonathan Haidt talks a lot about this in many of his works, Coddle Generation, etc.
Okay, yeah.
The preparation for many of those skills doesn't start in college.
Mm,
It starts in the home.
I love it.
And many parents have abandoned the their role as parent. They want to be a friend, not a parent.
Mhm.
And so they're not applying correctives. They're not holding students accountable.
Mhm.
When something goes wrong, it's the teacher's fault.
Right.
And
Right.
they're also fighting their students' battles.
For them.
If something goes wrong in the classroom, even at the college level,
Mhm.
it's the parent who steps in and confronts the professor. They don't say to their student, you need to go talk to your professor and find out what's going on.
Mhm. Mhm.
I can't tell you how, in recent times, more and more parents come to meetings with their students.
Yeah.
And what that's going to create is the inability, once mom and dad are not there,
Yeah.
for them to be able to stand and do what they need to do to engage their
Yeah.
boss, their
Yeah.
spouse,
Right. Right.
anything.
Right.
The other interesting piece to this is there is a growing number, and I think it's about 7 or 8% now, of parents who actually attend interviews with their students for their first jobs. Not college jobs or high school jobs. This is permanent out of school jobs.
In their
And
careers. Wow, I did not know that.
there are a lot of HR departments that say, Mom, dad shows up, that's an automatic, nope, you're not being hired. because you can't stand
Exactly.
on your own 2 feet. And once mom and dad
Yeah.
can't be there in the workplace every day, are you going to be
Yeah.
able to function?
Yeah.
So we like to blame colleges for not preparing
Right.
students, but the
Right.
reality is the skills that are critical to life, to work, to
Yes.
marriage,
Yes.
keep going, are really those that are formed within the context of the family, not
Yeah.
those that are formed in the college. 18 years of practice one way is not going to
Yes.
be changed in
And
basically 1,000 days of college. If you take off for breaks and so forth, you're really talking about a little less than, well, a lot less than 3 full years worth of
mhm.
engagement in a college
Mhm.
setting.
Mhm.
How are you going to change these 18 years in these 1,000 days?
Wow. Yeah, no, you bring an amazing perspective to this, because like you said, like we want to blame the college and we want to even blame the student for being woefully underprepared for college. But like the family life and that identity development really, really matters. How then do you help these young professionals? I tend to write about leadership development and, I really want to help young professionals like get a sense of identity and self so that they can have a little bit of confidence and a little bit of just kind of help them in their competency. Like you have something to contribute. What words of wisdom would you give to a young professional just going into their career in light of all the, delayed adolescence, in light of all the family systems thing? What would you say to that young professional?
It's kind of cliched, but it's true. Find a mentor. And
Yeah.
don't find a mentor who is your peer age.
Yes.
Because basically what you're going to need to do is find somebody, and I don't like this term, but I think it applies here, who is going to be able to reparent you.
Oh, okay. Good. Tell us more.
So to walk beside you and say, you need to take responsibility for X. I'm going to be here to help you understand how that happens, but I'm also going to push you out of the nest, and you're actually
Yeah.
going to have to be the one who
Yeah.
does it. Now, you can
Yeah.
come back to me and we'll debrief and we'll talk it through, but I'm not going to go for you.
Mhm.
I'm just going to be your support system and help you
Yeah.
understand and figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the one who um, says to you, oh, you can't do that.
Yeah.
It's not healthy.
Yeah.
You're spending 8 hours a day gaming, not going to work if you have a full time
Yeah.
job. Definitely not
Yeah.
going to work if you have a full time job and a family. So,
Right.
how are you going to self deny in order to be
Yeah.
the person that you should be and need to be?
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I love that mentoring piece. Not only do they say the words, but they can model the right behaviors for the next generation.
It's interesting, Lem. I hired 2 people in my last employment
Mhm.
who, in one case, it was started as a student of mine,
Mhm.
and the other was a direct report of mine at another place that I worked. And in both cases, there was a lot of engagement with them, not doing the work for them, but saying, "Have you thought about this? Why is this not
Right.
working? What's going
Right.
on here?
Helping
How do
them
we get to
develop.
where we need to be?"
Yeah.
In one case, the person was stalled. I don't like what I'm doing anymore. I see no path
Mhm.
forward. Okay, it's time to start thinking about a doctorate. Why would I
Yeah.
want to do that? Well, do you want to stay in higher education? Oh,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
what's the next logical step? How do you do it?
Mm.
And graduated with their
Yeah.
degree and is now working full time in higher education. In the other case, it was more, I don't know how to deal with this person.
Yeah.
And I find that's especially true when it's a 40 something trying to deal with a 60 something.
Yeah. Okay.
They're intimidated, they don't understand them, etc. Uh, so okay, how are you going to do this? What questions are you going to ask?
Mhm.
If you think about a lot of this, Moody Press had a book out years ago called "Why Do You Hate Me,"
Mm.
which was really trying to say it's not about hate or not hate, it's about a lack of proper communication, so forth. More recently, I've talked to a friend who talks about curiosity is a big part of understanding.
Yeah.
Young people kind of get nervous, scared with older people because they've never had to interact with them. Mom
Right.
and dad have always done it for them. And so now they don't know how to bridge that gap. And one of the tools that they can use is by being curious and asking questions rather than
Yeah.
making statements or demands. So,
Yeah.
why did you tell me to do that? Or
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
are you doing it this way?
Yeah.
Because the person might actually have a good answer, or the other side of the coin, they may say, "Yeah, it's dumb. Why do I do it? I have no idea. Thank you for asking that question." And
Yeah.
so it can build a relationship out of curiosity rather than judgment or standoffishness.
Yeah. One of the last places that I work, I was executive director for a conference and retreat center, and one of the programs that I was working on had to do with connecting the older generation with the next generation. And what anecdotally I found was that the older generation were more than willing to mentor and share their knowledge and raise up the next generation of leaders. And the next generation really wanted that, but what I was coming up against is unless you're at a university or you work together or you go to church together, there really wasn't a mechanism for the older generation and the next generation to meet and to
Yes.
develop, so unless you have proximity with somebody that's older, it's like I said, anecdotally, these older guys were more than willing to mentor the next generation, but it was just they just didn't have avenues for that. So how like can you speak to that? Like, do you have any insight on that?
But there's a major breakdown in multi generational living,
Mm, yeah.
especially in majority culture.
Okay. Yeah.
It's probably less, it's less likely in non majority cultures,
Right.
but
Because it's more
it's
communal.
still there.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the mechanisms for that multi generational engagement? Well, obviously
Mm-hmm.
the church, but
Mm-hmm.
the church has moved toward stratifying as well.
For real.
So how does the church aid in this process? Because we're, as a church, we're supposed to be preparing the next generation
Right.
for their role as a Christian within society. That
Mm-hmm.
means the workplace too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do we bridge that from and create multi generational um, approaches? Great area would be men's ministry. Our church does
Mm-hmm.
a Thursday guys' night, and they're trying desperately to attract all the span. They're doing
Right.
very well from 40 up,
Mm-hmm.
but under 40, why? Because
Those are
the
the
young
guys that
adults
need it.
group is competing with the men's group for those I only have limited amount of time. I feel much more
Mm-hmm.
comfortable going to young adults, which is 18 to 25, than to hang
Mm-hmm.
out with you guys in your 70s and 80s and whatever.
Yeah.
And so there's no call within the church to that multi-generation. There's what if the men's
Right.
ministry created
Right.
an intentional situation where they mentor? Their group escapes my mind right now, but there is a group within the business world where retired businessmen and women will
Yes.
meet with people just starting out,
Yes.
especially people who are trying to own businesses, to work with them and give them some of the skill sets that they need. And most of the time they
Mm-hmm.
meet in libraries or somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But those things are mostly ad hoc right now.
Right.
And so
Right.
how does the church participate in that? How does the workplace involve in that?
Mhm.
Other than you're forced to work multi-generationally, how is
Right.
the workplace intentionally trying to strengthen that multi-generational construct? Because that's already taking place unintentionally.
Right.
And with some level of intentionality, it might actually create a better workplace. It's that intentional, instead of, boy, why isn't this working? What steps can we take to make it work?
Yeah. And if we're able to do that, then the next generation that needs the mentoring and reparenting would get that from the guys that run the companies and can
Yeah,
hire these guys.
absolutely.
And so we talk about the current situation we're in and the challenges that we have. And I love that the mentoring and this multi-generational connection if we do it intentionally really answers that. I love that. I love that perspective.
I think it was in church 2 weeks ago, but pastor made a very interesting statement that the most influential person in a child's life is his grandfather.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how many 18 to 24-year-olds need a grandfather as an
Mm-hmm.
example?
Yeah.
And how many 60, 70-year-olds, 50-year-olds
Need a grandchild.
need a grandchild? And
Yeah.
so there's another way to connect, because it's not the I'm going to teach you formally. It's not I'm going to be your mentor in a formal way. The
Mm-hmm.
informal of life, doing life together,
Mm-hmm.
creates some of that. We kind of lack that today.
Yeah.
You know, if you
Yeah.
think about pre-World War II, you grew up in a neighborhood and your aunts and uncles
Mm-hmm.
lived there, grandparents lived there, and you stayed there your whole life. And so
Yeah.
when I think about my situation, probably 60% of the kids I went to school with still live in the town I grew up in.
Wow. Okay.
I don't.
Wow.
I went off to college and then went off to grad school on the other side of the country, moved
Yeah.
back for a year, and then moved to Chicago for most of my career. So
Mm-hmm.
I never had that group, and our kids never had grandparents that lived within 13 hours of us.
Mm-hmm.
And now they did have some other people who functioned kind of in a grandparent role for them. But because of the way work pulled families apart, some of that was lacking.
Yeah.
Um, and we also have the whole situation of, wow, what am I going, what do I have worth saying? A growing level of fear. If you think about the news today, what sells?
Yeah.
So
Fear.
what do you hear about?
The
And now
extremes.
that you have a 24/7 news cycle,
Mm-hmm.
so parents are petrified that something's going to happen to their kids.
Yeah.
Um, when I was a kid in the summer, I left home after breakfast,
Didn't come home
maybe
till
came home for
later.
lunch, but knew that I better be in the house by the time dinner came around.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my mother had no idea where I was, so I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a cell phone.
Right. Right.
But we were back in the woods building a tree house or doing this or doing that, and everything was fine.
Yeah.
Today, that would be considered a free range child, and
Yeah.
that may lead to the police getting involved.
Yeah.
And so my sense of independence or interdependence with peers was grown out of even play
Play. Yeah.
and activities. How do I negotiate conflict with my peer group? Because I'm in the middle of the woods, mom and dad aren't around. They're not going to bail me out. I've got to figure this out.
Well, Dr. Cornman, this has been an amazing conversation. I have so many more questions for you, but like
Well,
I don't want to keep you here forever. Hopefully we can do this again. Talk through some education, talk through some development
yeah,
and this delayed adolescence. I feel like and I know that you have so much wisdom to share. And so, we should have another one of these conversations.
great. That sounds good.
Thank you for being on the show. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's the easiest way to connect with you? I know you're on LinkedIn.
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, obviously, but also T Cornman, no spaces, my first initial of my first name, my last name all together, no dots, no anything, at Timothy Group, one word, .com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for being on the show. We'll
Thank
definitely do
you.
this again.
Lem, I
All right.
appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
No, this is fantastic. We'll see you.
All right, have a good day.